Hey, good evening. Well, we're at the end of a couple of quite exciting days, what with the Raptor breaking down and having to wait at the garage. When it actually packed in, it obviously had lost so much fuel that we managed to get to a garage thinking that perhaps the gauge was wrong for showing how much fuel we had. So we got some gas put in, diesel, but it didn't do the job. It had I think I've heard, not a technical man as I've said, but I've heard that if there is a downside, to running out of gas if you're in a diesel-driven vehicle, and that is the system can sometimes have to be bled in order to start up. Well, we were using the fuel; it was dripping out the bottom, which we looked underneath when we filled up with diesel. So we left the truck there and called Ford, the Ford dealership. Ford dealership actually had somebody on hand who was on 24-hour standby, and they drove down from Tagbilaran and picked up the Raptor on a low loader, so very safe. Not on some cases, I know in the UK, in some cases they have a bar and they just tie the steering wheel and tow it, but it's not going anywhere. It's an actual bar that's about 8 feet or 6 or 8 feet long, enough to allow the vehicle that's being towed to turn. So anyway, we had that, and then we had already, as soon as the Raptor packed in, we came home and we picked up the bike, the Yamaha, and we went back to town and did whatever we had to do, and then we came and waited for the low loader to come from Tagbilaran. Of course, now it's so easy now that everybody has a cell phone, so whatever the drawbacks of that are, the plus is that people are in good communication, and they told us where they were along the journey, so we knew what probable time they were going to be there, and they were in good time. So after that we went and had something to eat that in Taliban, and then we came home. But even then it was in the dark. I'm really not good about driving in the dark in the Philippines. This is not, it's not a thing of age. I know that people who get older, the eyesight is not as good, and it's wise not to drive in the dark. But this is not the case here, because things are just that much more hazardous when you're driving in the Philippines in the dark. And I think that this is possibly one of the worst challenges that a foreigner will have when he comes here, is dealing with driving conditions, because what has to happen, and this sounds like a contradiction. It sounds like a contradiction, but actually it's not. The drivers of the motorcycles especially are very skilled. They're very skilled drivers, very skilled riders, okay? But there is no training available to tell them what the rules of the road are. So you get overtaking and cutting you in, cutting across the front of the truck when we're driving. There's no education about lights. So and what this does is it makes me realize how much education, how much training there is available in the West, in foreign land. Okay, like in foreign land, you're taught to halt at a major road ahead. Now you halt, and you need to halt behind the white line, you halt and you look left and then right and then left again, or right and left and right again, whichever is the case, and you make sure that nothing is coming. And if nothing's coming, you pull out, and everything is very orderly. And the rule is that you don't do that. You don't pull out if it means that someone in oncoming traffic has to brake in order for you to do what you're doing. You don't do that. So everything is built on a kind of a courtesy basis and a mutual respect basis. So, I mean, the French, I once had a Citroën, and the French carry that to an even greater degree than they do in Britain or in America. They have a 2-level volume on the horn. So there's the blaster, the one that's loud and meant to warn people that you are coming or they shouldn't be there or whatever. And then there's another one, another press, so it's a lighter press, and it gives a little polite toot. It's for someone who is crossing in front of you, perhaps a pedestrian, and you wouldn't want to startle them, so you can just go beep, all very, very polite. They don't have that here. So overtaking on the inside is common. Overtake on the inside, on the outside. You can force someone to stop. You can pull out in front of somebody. Now, all of this is commonplace, and so it's not correct to say that there are no rules. There are rules, but they're different to what you as a foreigner would know. For instance, to a degree, this is the same on the continent in France, is that traffic coming from the right has right of way. Now that's normally said at a roundabout or a circle, as they'd say in America. And so traffic coming from the right, you're supposed to give way to. Now, in the Philippines, that giving way is almost impossible, because you'll be driving along the road and just that famous expression, out of the blue, he came from nowhere, they just come in front of you. And it's up to you to stop. So this is commonplace, and there's no point in, you can't do the moody like you would do, say, if someone has disobeyed the rules in the West. You know, you can pull alongside them and give them the look. Now, if you did that here, the biker would or driver would just simply not know what was the problem. They'd probably turn to if they're in a car, they'd probably turn to their passenger and say, "What happened? What did I do? I only pulled out." It's a crazy thing. Now, the other thing that if you came to our area and lived in Bohol, in Talabong, there's it seems like there's no rules. They have what are called traffic enforcers, but I've been parked next to a no parking space, a no parking placard, right? A sign saying no parking, and I've been sitting there, and a traffic enforcer has come along, so polite, and said to me, "Excuse me, sir, are you going to be long?" No, I'm just waiting for my wife, who is getting Jollibee. I'm just sitting here. If I'm in the way, I can drive away. He said, could you just put your hazard lights on? And I do that, and he says, "Thank you." When we were in Tagbilaran, and I've said about this before a long time ago, that we were there, we'd taken someone to hospital, a mission case, and they needed to go to hospital. They had no transport and were not fit enough to go in the bus. So we drove them up there, and I parked in a no parking area. Now they've become westernized in Tagbilaran, because now, they didn't have it then, but now they have a whole fleet, a company that puts the boot in. So you can get booted when you're in Tagbilaran. But I got a ticket there, and after I'd had the ticket, because of my brutal training in the US, where if you transgress while you are in LA in particular, they'll give you a ticket for almost anything. I got a ticket once because I was parked on a hill. I got the handbrake on, it's in gear, but you're supposed to park with your wheels like this into the curb. So if everything fails, it just hits the curb. And you're also not supposed to park more than about 6 inches or 9 inches from the curb. Well, I parked, and then as I walked away, I looked back, my wheels are turned as they should be, but I was about 9 inches and overhanging a little in my parking, my white box for parking in that space. And I thought, I'm bound to get a ticket. Well, it was a the prophecy, a self-inflicted prophecy. And I got back in the truck, backed it up a little bit, and I forgot to turn the wheels into the curb, and I got a ticket for that. So it can be really rough there. So when you're back here, I'm thinking, I got a ticket, I better go in and pay that. If you don't do it within a month, I think you get 28 days. It's a 38, well, back then it was something like a $38 fine. So you want to pay that, because it goes up by 50%, I think, if I remember rightly. It goes up by 50% if you don't pay it in time. And then another 50%, and oh my God, it can get to very, very serious. So I went into the transport here, the LTO, and I spoke to a lady, and I said, look, I have this parking ticket that I need to pay. And she said, really? Can I see it? And I give her the parking ticket, and she looks at it, and she reads at it like that, back and forth, and then she hands it back to me. And she said, oh, we don't do parking tickets here. We don't give parking tickets. Can you imagine being told that? So I said, well, how do I pay it? She said, I don't know. We don't do parking tickets here. So the best she could advise me was, well, perhaps you should go back to Tagbilaran and see if you can find some way to pay it there. 8 years later, I thought, or certainly 6 or 7 years later, I've never paid it. And unlike the computerized system that they have in, well, certainly in the UK, where they'll send you a picture if you say gone through a red light or left it too late to go there or jumped the green, they'll have a picture of you sitting in your car with the number plate in bold, and they'll send you a time that you were there and the place, time and place, and what you owe. Nothing like that is here. In fact, we have the bike that we got, the scooter type that we got for Beth to learn, which she hasn't done that yet, but we have 2 girls who are very good at their learning, and have taken to riding the bikes. We've got 3 girls here. We've got Bibi, and we've got Taliklik, and we've got our DC, who has become part of the family. She came to us as a working student, so as a helper for Nanai, and well, she's become like the girls now. We just support her through her education, and we'll put her through college, and she's here, and she sleeps at Nana's place. So we've got them, and they all ride very well. Very difficult to get anybody to wear a helmet, right? I wear a helmet, and certainly I would not want to go out without a helmet. We've been forced to on a couple of occasions where, you know, the bike has been here, but someone's taken the helmets. That's another subject. The subject of ownership and what it means in the Philippines. Borrowing, totally different here. It's the same planet, different world. But anyway, they can all ride. Normally they choose not to ride with a helmet. You want to become the nagger, with everybody running and hiding when you arrive. Oh no, he's going to nag us again. Everybody's on their own responsibility, so what can you do? You can't force someone to think the way that you do. And I save myself a lot of personal stress and anguish by accepting that I'm not the policeman for everything that is non-Western. I know that I'm in a foreign country and I'm the foreigner, and it's me that has to make the changes. So, just about got to the end of what I wanted to say. Things are different. You need to think differently when you are here and you drive, and you have to be fully aware always that you are the foreigner and that you need to change and need the rules. You need to learn the new rules, and there are plenty, and they're usually life-threatening, like driving with no lights. The education in a Western country, the education is see and be seen. Now, what I've noticed in the Philippines, certainly here in the province, is that they don't put their lights on if they can still see, because they think it drains the power. So what you will see is a vehicle with no lights on. It's not that they don't have lights, although that's the case for a lot. They just don't turn them on if they can see. And if you said put your lights on, they'd say, what, are you blind? You can see perfectly well. They don't realize that lights are so that they can be seen. I'm not right about everything, and I can't educate the Philippines. The biggest mistake any foreigner makes when they come here is thinking that when their foot, sacred as it is as a foreigner, steps onto the ground of the Philippines, that the Philippines is going to change for them. It's not. I'll end off on that note. Bye for now.